So they mentioned the police, so I was able to just kind of accept and move forward.
Right.
So I'm hoping that, because I agree with you, that in the next episode they will address what she put in her
that caused that reaction.
And then she will say, I had a tracking device and I had to do this. And they said, oh, well, by administering this and Star Trek Technobabble word, you've nullified it. So we understand they can write it away with a line of dialogue or something.
Okay, right. So yeah, that makes sense. So she gave herself this drug that was going to kill her because it would deactivate the chip. Why you chew a chip is beyond me too. Wouldn't you just take it like a pill? But whatever. So yeah, okay. So but you do that, and then the consequence is that you'll die. But if you don't somehow die because there's a emergency medical hologram on board that will save you, it doesn't work anymore. Okay, I can buy that.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that they establish that.
So for everyone complaining that the pace was really slow, it really sped up this episode, because I expected to see like 2 or 3 agonizing episodes when this started and then her doing all this, but we got all of it in one episode very quickly.
I don't have any problem with the pace of any of the episodes. I have a problem with some of the editing choices they've made to make the pace seem faster, but I think the shows are flowing okay for the most part.
I was fine with the pace, but I have heard a lot of grumbles that like the first 5 episodes were a little bit slow for people. It's like, all right, we get it. We get who the characters are. Let's move on. But
those people need to recognize that they're watching Star Trek Picard, and it's been 20 years, and they can make it as slow as they want to. I'm happy to see Patrick Stewart as Picard again, and those are the first couple of episodes. It's okay.
So that's what I basically said too. But this was a very quick episode. All these things happened in very quick succession. You see, when we saw Narissa going after Hugh, I thought this would last an episode or 2, but it didn't. It got to almost the end and he died. When you see her start to crack about wanting to go home, I figured in an episode or 2 we would see her do something crazy, but it didn't. It happened at the end of this episode.
Yes.
You knew anything that happened with Will and Deanna was going to have to happen quick because they're not going to be in multiple episodes in a row. So that didn't seem too fast anyway. All the conversations that happened there took place in one day, so it made sense.
You're right. They established and they concluded some things. So they needed to conclude some things so they can get to the finale in the next couple episodes.
Well, that's it too. We're running out of time, right? Because I remember reading, and no one's been able to confirm this, but it is 10 episodes, right?
I thought it was 12.
I hope you're right, but even still, we have 5 left then, right? Because we have 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah, I thought it was 12. I could do something simple like go to IMDb and see if they will tell me, assuming it's right.
Hopefully.
It only lists episode 10 on IMDb, but it says episode guide as 11 episodes. So who knows?
11 episodes. Interesting.
Yeah.
So
who knows?
And when you look at cast, it says Patrick Stewart's in 11 episodes.
So maybe it's the average of 10 and 12.
Yeah, looks like it. All right, so we'll get one more, but that's still only 4 episodes remaining in the season. And because I can't see Picard missing an episode, although everybody else misses at least one episode. Everybody's actually only one of the persons in 10 episodes, and that's Jurati. So, spoiler alert: she's not dead.
No, she's not. I didn't think she was.
No, but she could just be seen as in a coma for 4 episodes. That's possible.
That's okay. They can do that. I like it when they give characters depth like that. You have an action, and they drag the action, the consequences of that action along.
Right.
To create a strong consequence, i.e., Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, they did not bring Spock right back to life immediately after he died.
Well, they didn't plan on bringing him back at all.
That's true. That's true. They didn't. But, that sacrifice at the end of that movie wouldn't have meant anything if they had...
If at the end of that movie, he was still on the bridge, yes.
You look at Star Trek Into Darkness, and you get the exact point.
Right. Yes, exactly. I'm not the hater of that movie that everyone else is, but yes, exactly.
There's 2 points. Just the movie's beautiful. It's just the 2 points. Magic blood doesn't work for me.
No, me neither. I'll tell you this: it worked for my wife, and now she's a Star Trek fan, so the movie works for me.
Hey, it's a great movie.
So,
the wife is right. It's a great movie.
Anything that brings more fans in, I'm okay with, regardless of whether I like it or not.
That's how I felt. That's how I felt about Star Trek 09 when I heard about it.
Right.
Everybody was like, "What are they doing?" And I was like, "Hey, listen, they have to bring the brand to our time." The same thing with Discovery. When we saw Discovery, holograms on the bridge and all this. I'm like, listen, we have holograms now, so they would have holograms then.
Right, exactly.
It's okay.
They can't write a show for people who are 40 and up. They have to write the show, and I mean, they are writing it for an adult crowd. Picard, there's a lot of F-bombs, but
there is, even in this episode, and this time I didn't notice it the first time I watched it. So they've inundated me.
Yes, exactly. I'm in New York. I don't hear curses. But
right.
They are writing it for an older crowd, but a younger version of that older crowd. We're writing it for the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, or even the high teens to get into it, because they want to convert them into fans now, so they will last into the future.
So we have one reality, okay? Or, I'm sorry, we have two possible realities. One with Star Trek that's been updated, and one without Star Trek that we just watch in reruns.
Right. I'll take the one with. And
take the one with.
I can still watch the reruns. So
yes.
It's not like they disappear because new shows showed up.
That's right. So please, just continue.
Exactly. So back to Jurati killing herself or attempting to kill herself. It was pretty awesome to watch her flip this way. And the fact that and all the supporting cast around her during all this is good, because even like she gets sick and she starts to throw up, and Rios is like, "Is that blood?" And she's like, "No, it's red velvet cake." Oops.
Yeah, I mean, have we seen a character attempt to do something like that before?
With the exception of Worf, no. I remember when his back was broken, he wanted to kill himself, but it's a totally different scenario.
That is a little different scenario, but not something quite like this. I mean, you had Rios on one hand thinking that, help me out, what's the other girl's name?
Jurati?
No, the other one.
Rios,
Jurati, and the pretty girl with the
hair. Rafi.
Rafi, thank you. You've got Rios assuming that Rafi is a spy.
And that's when she really cracks. That's the moment that throws her over the edge.
Yes.
Because now she's not just affecting the life of Soji, Maddox, and herself, who I believe she feels some ownership over the fact that the universe is going to be destroyed because she helped Maddox get to the point he was at before he disappeared and went farther. But now she realizes she's directly affecting Rafi and may get Rafi killed for what she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You slowly see these cracks throughout the course of this episode. Almost like every time she says something, it's almost like an abrupt.
Yep.
And in that last moment where he goes in to say, I've got this idea. What do you think about Rafi? She disappeared, and maybe she's doing this thing. And she said no. And he goes, well, what do you want me to think? And you think it's you?
Well, he says, no, it's definitely not her. And then it seemed like, and I have this in my notes, she wanted to say, because it's me. But she stops right before that. And like you said, he says, oh, what? Is it you? Because
right.
She's so like nerdy, quirky, nice, and innocent. No one would ever believe it was her.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, he's so starved for affection that he's got all of these clones of himself, holographic clones of himself. So I think he would be kind of, have the smoke screen in front of his eyes anyway. Absolutely. About this sort of thing.
And the moment that conversation happens, Rafi's like, he's back again. So like, it looks even worse for Rafi. We're talking here. You couldn't have called him and told him where we were because I'm talking to you. What did she do? And then he tries to like backtrack it because he says it's weird. She got off with these good goodbyes and all this, and Picard's not around to know that she went to her because didn't Rafi tell Picard about the son not wanting to see her ever again?
I don't think anybody knows. I don't think she told Picard.
I thought she told somebody. But either way, he's like, well, maybe she made these big goodbyes, and then she's just back here without an explanation. And then he kind of backtracks, and he's like, well, maybe she got chipped and doesn't know it. Like, maybe someone's tracking her without her knowing.
But the paranoia is growing because you could tell that he was like, she disappeared and she wasn't there, and maybe she got chipped by, and he kind of was like, some Romulans.
Right.
So you can almost feel like there's a paranoia growing amongst these people.
Yes, and that if he can correlate her leaving to getting chipped unintentionally, he can eventually work it back to intentionally for Jurati, maybe.
Yeah, these things are very slippery, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
When you start pointing fingers and making accusations.
Right, because it very quickly goes from, well, what happened? Where were you on that time? Where'd you go? Where'd you eat? What'd you do? To, well, no one could have slipped it into any of your food because you didn't eat there. Then what did you do to get us caught?
Right. I mean, the whole dynamic is just very engaging. I wish we had a little bit more time with them. I mean, I'm not going to complain. We got a lot of Riker and Troy, a lot,
right?
And all of it was good. And I don't feel like any of it was, just there was some great fan service, of course, but it was relevant.
This show does fan service great. It shows up, but it makes sense to the current story going on right now. So it's not just fan service.
But I would have liked to have had just maybe a little bit more time. I would like to see like Star Trek, like Event Horizon style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have like these people and they're in a space pod and they're getting paranoid and there's a spy there and they, Clue, Star Trek Clue in space.
Yeah, see, that would be, they're running around the ship pointing at things. Did you kill her there with the taser beam or, what?
But I felt like they were kind of getting to, some of that more psychological stuff that you see in some other science fiction. And that would be really cool to be explored. And of course, with Jurati, there's lots of psychological stuff happening there.
Oh,
so
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe
but even with all of them, because, Rios has got to be something, right? We got to go into depth. We have to, but I would like to know. I would like to know more about what happened with his commander. Okay. With Jurati, we have you became a spy, and now you're realizing maybe that was a bad idea. And then with Rafi, you're a drug addict and alcoholic. Like, you guys are horribly messed up, and you need help.
It's almost funny.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
But I also see like me and my three friends. Like that's what I see here. Like,
yes,
I know that one, and I mean, none of them are spies, but
Well, maybe they've spied before for you.
It's possible. but I mean, you just they're not perfect is the part that's great. Like they all have some glaring weakness to their character about something.
It can't be perfect. So they again, this goes back to that discussion of utopia in Star Trek The Next Generation. And even when they were writing utopia in Star Trek The Next Generation, it wasn't utopia. There was so many conflicts amongst the members of that ship and the crew on that ship. It wasn't utopia. It just wasn't. It was thought to be utopia because you could smile and shake hands and put on a good face to be civil. But
it was just better than now, not perfect.
Right.
And would you really buy a show that's perfect?
Oh, it doesn't. It is boring.
Right. It would be, if everyone just walked around in slippers, it would be awful.
It would be terrible. Yeah. Picard in space. Hi,
right.
How are you today? I'm good.
And we'd have no podcast right now. This would have been over an hour and 10 minutes ago. We're only an hour and 15 minutes in. So
there has to be conflict. And so the fact that they've given us characters and performers that are so colorful, I'm just thankful for.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely. So the end of this episode, the very end of this episode. Before we go to that, but Rios's performance when the hologram calls up and says it's about Jurati, and he's like, "Oh, is her stomach bothering her still?" And he's like, "I'm actually more worried about her coma." First off, was a really kind of like, ooh, funny way to give really bad information. Like, that'd be funny if you didn't say coma. Like, but
how many times have we all said the wrong thing at the wrong time?
And how many times have they said the wrong thing at the wrong time in this episode?
But we could have a drinking game.
Yeah. Yes, you could. But his performance jumping out of the seat and sliding all the way down the stairs.
That was great.
And it also shows just how small this ship really is.
I agree with you. I think it's the first time we've got to see somebody